Okay, imagine this glittering surface, right? This dream. You've got a young, artistic couple, and they're documenting this seemingly perfect van life journey all across the country.
Yeah, the smiling selfies, the campfires.
Yeah,
Looks amazing.
exactly. Total freedom.
Yeah.
But then the reality starts to creep in. It gets chilling because just days before she vanishes, her fiance drives back home without her.
And he disappears too.
Vanished. So today we're doing a deep dive into this really compelling and honestly heartbreaking case of Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to sift through, well, a whole stack of sources. We've got articles, police reports, accounts from eyewitnesses, even personal messages.
Yeah, lots to unpack.
The goal is to pull out those nuggets of knowledge, maybe some surprising facts, things the headlines might have missed, to help you really understand the important details here.
And it's a case, despite all the publicity, it really has so many layers. We'll be looking at everything from, like, the subtle signs of domestic violence, signs often missed,
Right.
to the bigger picture. Questions about society's response, media focus, all of that. But, crucially, we're committed to presenting the facts impartially, just letting the insights come from the sources themselves.
No taking sides. Okay, so let's start by painting a picture. Gabby Petito, she was 22. Friends described her as artistic, joyful, just full of life.
Yeah?
She sets off with Brian, her fiancé, on this big 4-month van trip back in July 2021, documenting it all as nomadic static.
It looks like a dream on Instagram.
Totally.
Yeah.
But when you dig into the sources, something else starts to emerge, something darker behind those perfectly framed shots. So what did the sources tell us about their relationship, like, really, before the van?
That's such a key question. They met in high school, which is interesting.
Hmm.
But even back then, people noticed stark contrasts. Gabby was seen as this old soul, living with rainbows, super friendly.
Okay.
Brian, though, described differently, more of a loner. Some said he had 0 friends and even made comments about, like, hating the human species sometimes.
Wow, that's quite a difference. Her vibrant energy versus his more isolated, maybe darker side.
Exactly. It's a clash right from the start.
And we see signs, early signs, of Brian being possessive, controlling. Sources say he actually made Gabby delete the Find My Friends app. Her friend thought that was really weird.
Unsettling.
And he demands she be home for dinner, cutting short her time with friends. And then there was that one incident. Apparently he stole her ID to stop her going line dancing with a friend. Left her hysterical.
Yeah, that one stands out.
So was this stuff typical even before the trip? Or did the van life, the isolation, maybe make it worse?
Well, the sources suggest these tendencies were already there, deeply ingrained maybe. But the van trip, it likely amplified everything. You see it really clearly in some, frankly, alarming text messages he sent her.
Like the ones about her job?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He was furious. She worked at Taco Bell,
Yeah.
called her colleagues low lives, said she was turning into one of them.
Oh.
And these frantic, almost desperate messages too, like, I couldn't have my life without you. It really feels like the van trip might have been, for him, a way to isolate her even more, cut off her support system.
Cement his control. Okay, but to really get the full picture, we have to look inside Brian's world. His journals, his art, they reveal some really disturbing stuff. Things he was thinking long before Gabby vanished. What did those uncover?
It's genuinely unsettling. Even before Gabby, his writings mention things like smashing holes in walls, pouring gasoline on myself to burn alive, listening to music with a gun to my head, expressing this wish to die.
That's incredibly dark.
And his art reflected it. Skulls, grim reapers. There was a drawing of a woman on fire with a chest wound. Another piece showed a wolf in a jacket, and the letter on the jacket changes from a B to the word sheep.
Like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Pretty much, yeah. It paints this picture of someone really, really struggling internally, long before this trip.
Chilling. It really makes you think about warning signs, doesn't it? And this wasn't all just private. He seemed to cultivate a public image, even using social media against her, subtly. Like that Instagram post after the Moab incident.
Oh, yeah, the tree picture.
Right. This tree doesn't require an Apple Watch. And Gabby wore an Apple Watch. It feels like a jab right after they had that public fight. What does that tell us?
It's a tactic, isn't it? Weaponizing social media. Not just to build a fake image, but to undermine her, control the narrative. It seems so small, that post, but in context, it suggests someone really manipulative, carefully crafting that facade while hiding darker stuff.
Okay, all this context is crucial as we get to that incident in Moab, Utah, August 12th, 2021. This becomes pivotal. Someone calls 911.
Right, reporting a man slapping a woman and seeing their white van driving erratically.
Police stop them, and the body cam footage, it's hard to watch. Gabby is crying. She's clearly distraught. Brian, though, he seems unnervingly calm.
Very calm. And the police report initially framed it as a mental breakdown for Gabby.
But the evidence, I mean, it seems to point more towards domestic violence, right? What were the inconsistencies there, the things that led to the lawsuit later?
Well, that's the critical part. Initially, Gabby kind of downplayed the physical side, but the officers noticed marks on her face and arm.
Okay.
Then she admitted Brian had grabbed her face, hard enough to cause a bleeding injury, and she'd actually taken a photo of it on her phone before the police even stopped them.
Wow. And Brian, what was his story?
He just said Gabby was worked up, claimed his own scratches were from a wire, not from her.
So, conflicting stories.
Definitely. And the officers' discussion, caught on camera, is revealing. They debated if it was even worth the paperwork to file charges.
Seriously?
Yeah. And they ultimately decided Gabby was the primary aggressor. They separated them, sent Brian to a shelter for domestic violence victims, and let Gabby keep the van for the night.
That seems backward, given she had the injury he apparently caused.
It does. And the later police investigation found issues, inconsistencies, potential bias in how it was handled, which led to the lawsuit from Gabby's parents. They're actually appealing it now.
It just highlights how difficult it can be, maybe, to spot the signs, especially if a victim is hesitant or maybe being manipulated.
Absolutely. Or maybe the officers focused too much on Brian appearing calm and Gabby being upset. It shows how tricky these situations are for law enforcement, especially identifying the primary aggressor accurately.
Okay, so moving past Moab, the trip starts winding down, but then things take an even more sinister turn. Brian shows up back in Florida, alone, September 1st.
Yep, driving Gabby's van 2,300 miles without her.
And then silence. 10 agonizing days go by before Gabby's family reports her missing. And Brian refuses to talk to police, and then he disappears too.
And the Laundrie family's lack of cooperation during that time was notable.
Very. Let's talk about Gabby's last communications. They seem really suspicious in hindsight.
Extremely. That FaceTime with her mom on August 25th seems normal. But then a text on the 27th asks about Stan. That's her grandfather, but she apparently never called him Stan.
Weird.
Very. And then another text on August 30th says, no service in Yosemite. But evidence shows she wasn't in Yosemite then.
So the thinking is,
The strong suspicion, almost certainty, is that Brian sent those texts, trying to create a false trail, make it seem like Gabby was alive and okay and buy himself time. A calculated deception.
and here's something really heartbreaking. Just 5 days before her estimated death, around August 22nd, Gabby actually reached out to an ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, that came out later.
She hinted she had a plan to leave Brian, said she felt unsafe. And this call happened while Brian was briefly away. He'd flown back to Florida to empty a storage unit.
So there was this window, this tiny window where she might have felt able to reach out.
It's just tragic. So close maybe to getting away.
And Brian's actions after her likely death, probably around August 27th and 28th, they scream alibi construction.
Like the hitchhiking.
Exactly. August 29th, people picked him up hitchhiking near where Gabby's body was later found. He offered big money for short rides, said he was camping alone for weeks, but witnesses said he didn't look dirty or disheveled. Didn't add up. Not at all. And he was sending texts to Gabby's phone, knowing she couldn't read them, presumably so they'd show up later as if they were communicating. Then he accessed her phone later himself. It's all about building that false narrative.
And that Spotify playlist, Self-Consumption. He apparently made that for the drive back alone.
Yeah, the FBI found that the lyrics are just chilling.
Like what?
Things like, your woman is your angel. Could be the last thing you see on this earth. And another line, just keep nodding until your head comes off. It suggests a really, really disturbed mindset on that long drive back.
Wow, a soundtrack to what he'd done.
It seems that way. And through all this, the Laundrie family's silence was deafening. Blocking texts from Gabby's parents, refusing police interviews, only communicating through their lawyer with these detached statements.
Which raised huge questions about what they knew or suspected. That became central to the lawsuit Gabby's parents filed against them later.
Right. It really shows the complex dynamics, even within a family, in a crisis like this.
Then came the news everyone feared. September 19th, they found Gabby's remains in Wyoming, in Bridger-Teton National Forest.
The cause of death was brutal. Manual strangulation, blunt force trauma.
And the way she was found, that detail is haunting. in a fetal position, wrapped in a sweater, signs of maybe a staged fire nearby, like someone tried to make it look different.
Yeah, like an attempt to obscure the cause of death, maybe make it look like exposure.
Then, about a month later, October 20th, they find Brian's remains, skeletal remains, in a Florida nature reserve.
And near him, they found his notebook. The FBI confirmed it contained a written confession. He admitted to killing Gabby.
But his lawyer later released parts where Brian claimed it was, what a merciful act, after she supposedly hurt herself.
Correct. He tried to frame it as some kind of mercy killing after an accident, a version that experts say just doesn't align with the autopsy findings of strangulation and blunt force trauma. It feels like one last attempt to control the story.
Even after death, it's incredible. And one surprising detail, how they narrowed down the search area for Gabby.
Oh, right. That was fellow van life YouTubers, Jen and Kyle Bethune.
Yeah, their dashcam footage, they just happened to film a white van matching the description parked in that remote area.
On the exact days the FBI figured Gabby and Brian were likely there. It was a huge tip-off, helped pinpoint the search. Just pure chance, really.
Amazing how things connect sometimes. Okay, stepping back from the details of the case itself, the massive media attention here really forced a conversation, didn't it?
It absolutely did. It shone a huge spotlight on what's often called missing white woman syndrome, meaning the disproportionate amount of media coverage cases that Gabby's receive compared to missing persons from other demographics, especially women of color or indigenous women, many of whom go missing in the very same areas.
Right. It's a difficult but necessary conversation about bias and media focus.
Definitely. And to his credit, Gabby's father, Joseph Petito, he acknowledged this. He's used his platform since then to advocate for all missing persons, trying to bridge that gap.
That's important. And another kind of unexpected outcome, the sheer intensity of the search for Gabby and Brian actually led to other missing people being found.
Yeah, I think reports said 5 other unrelated missing persons cases were solved or advanced because of the resources poured into that area and the public awareness generated. An unintended but positive side effect.
So, looking at the big picture here,
Yeah.
what does this case really tell us?
Well, I think it starkly reveals how social media, this thing that allowed them to project this van life dream,
Right, the perfect image.
it can also create these powerful illusions. It can mask incredibly dangerous realities happening just beneath the surface. It's a reminder, really, of the hidden complexities that can exist behind those curated online lives.
So, we've walked through this incredibly intricate timeline, the shocking details of Gabby Petito's story. This deep dive, it's exposed not just, a tragic murder, but this whole web, relationships, digital trails, society's blind spots.
Yeah, and the case continues to resonate. It leaves us with these profound questions about domestic violence, about accountability, the role of families, and even about truth itself in our super-connected world.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening? Maybe consider this provocative thought. We live in an age where so much is curated, shared online, looks perfect. How do we get better at seeing beyond that surface? How do we recognize those subtle signs of distress in people around us online or offline? And maybe more importantly, how do we make sure every person's story gets seen, gets valued, even when the cameras aren't focused on them?